Good evening, everybody. We'd like to open the Town of Ayer Select Board meeting for Tuesday, September 17th, 2024. This meeting/hearing of the Ayer Select Board will be held in person at the location provided on this notice. Members of the public are welcome to attend this in-person meeting. Please note that while an option for remote attendance and/or participation via Zoom is being provided as a courtesy to the public, the meeting/hearing will not be suspended or terminated if technological problems interrupt the virtual broadcast, unless otherwise required by law. Members of the public with particular interest in a specific item on this agenda should make plans for in-person versus virtual attendance accordingly. This meeting will be live on Zoom and Channel 8. The public may access the proceedings by joining Zoom meeting ID number 897-9080-0793 or by calling 929-205-6099. For additional information about remote participation, please contact Carly Antonellis, the Assistant Town Manager, at atm@ayer.ma.us or 978-772-8220, extension 100, prior to the meeting. We can all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, I understand there's a couple of amendments to the agenda this evening. Janice?
Yes, Mr. Chair, I'd like to, under new business select board member question section, I'd like to add I spoke to Senator Eldridge, so I guess a conversation with Senator Eldridge update.
Okay. And then Robert?
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, two amendments. Under the Community Development Program Manager report, if we could add a number 3, which would be the designation of environmental certifying officer for the grant. Ms. Hersey will present that. And then under the town manager's report, if we could add a number 6, which is the approval of the household hazardous waste amendment number 6, which would add the town of Ashburnham to the collaborative. And I'll speak to that under my report. Thank you.
Okay. Any other changes or amendments?
I don't have any.
Okay. I'll take a motion.
I make a motion that the select board approve the agenda as amended.
Seconded?
All those in favor?
Aye.
And the chair says aye. Any announcements this evening? All right. So we'll move on to public input. Is anybody here for public input? Sure, come on up.
Then you got Pauline's hand. Oh, no.
Hi, I'm Carolyn McCreary, 6 Wachusett Avenue East. And I'm here because we are forming, or have formed, Friends of the Ayer Senior Center. And we have applied for a 501c3, and we're seeking members' donations, and we're asking for donations of $20. So come see me. We'll take check, cash, whatever.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
There you go.
All right, and is there anybody else here for public input? Sure, come on up. And then Pauline, I do see your hand. I'll get to you right after. Hello.
Hello. So my name is Christina Zoller. I'm the assistant town clerk here, and we're here to officially invite you and everybody else to the 4th annual Newton Street Folk and Arts Festival, being planned for Saturday, October 5th from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. With a rain date of that Sunday, October 6th. We're really looking forward to putting this on. So I'd just like to quickly thank the volunteer committee who's working very hard to put this together, which is myself and Samantha Benoit. We have Jonathan Kranz, Barry Schwarzel, Alicia Hersey, and Chuck Schultz. And we're also grateful to have the guidance of Robert Pompriand, our town manager. And then we are in contact with the chiefs as well, Tim Johnson, Brian Gill, and as well as Dan Van Scalwick from DPW, and we're grateful for their support as well. We've received sponsorship, as you can see up here. Just today, we were very fortunate to accept a very generous donation of $6,000 from Main Street Bank to help fund this festival. We also received sponsorships from Catania Oils and Nasoya as well, and we are very grateful for their ongoing support of this event.
We will have, during this event, quite a few entertainers. We've already have some bands booked, Eric Kilborn and the Swing Cafe Band, Mike Lanigan and the Roadhouse Romeos, the Squeezebox Stoppers, and a local singer-songwriter, Keith McLinden. We'll also have 2 dance performances from local dance schools. Maria's School of Dance and the Dance Garden will also do a little show. And at this time, we have 38 booths of vendors. About half of them are local artists and crafters who will be selling their goods, but we'll also have local nonprofits, boards, committees. We'll also have tables to share information and how you can get involved with the town.
Excellent.
Yeah, and we're really looking forward to seeing everybody on that Saturday the 5th, because we're not going to need the rain date. It's going to be a beautiful day. Yes, yes, but we do hope to see everybody there, and it's going to be a wonderful event.
Great.
Thank you very much, and congratulations on the $6,000 check.
Looking forward to it.
Pauline?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have one extremely brief and one little bit longer, but still brief comment. First, Habitat for Humanity would like to invite all of you to the official groundbreaking for 12 Newton Street on Friday, September 27th at 10 a.m. So if you would put that on the town calendar, of course, we'd like anyone from town to be there. Senator Eldridge will, I'm not sure. I think Representative Sena, but I don't know about Representative Scarsdale, though we would love a representation from the board. So that's a really brief one. The next one is not a new topic for us, but I wanted to just share some thoughts I've had recently. It will soon be dark earlier, but since there are still a few weeks to go, I want to make yet another request for better signage and lighting at the Central Avenue Adams Street crosswalk. First, I want to thank Dan for his willingness to consider and implement the suggestions I made last fall. There has been a definite improvement, but crossing the street continues to be a challenge. The reflective pedestrian sign, which was placed in the crosswalk in the spring, really helped slow traffic, especially with cars parked along both sides of Central Ave. But it is constantly being moved to the side of the street, although I've never seen that happen. And it has been there now for many weeks, and I know it will be removed for winter. I have had multiple close calls as a pedestrian, which prompted me to make the request I did last fall. A few weeks ago, I had an experience as a driver that was very disturbing, but I believe is easily resolved. On August 15th, the night of the DPH public hearing at Devon's, I was bringing a friend home who was unable to drive. It was after 10 p.m. and therefore very dark. We were heading east on Central Ave. In the same instant, my passenger and I saw 2 pedestrians to our left in the street, crossing near but not in the crosswalk. They were wearing dark clothing and were about 6 inches from my front fender when we saw them. There was absolutely no light with which to see them. We were both very startled. He could not be here tonight, but he intends to connect with you later. I've looked around the area for locations for additional lighting or other means of brightening the area at night, hoping to have a suggestion for you. The first thought I had was to outline the crossing signs with solar-powered flashing lights, similar to the ones that outline the stop ahead sign at Neshoba Valley Express. I'm sure Dan knows what I'm referring to. I will concede if people do not use the crosswalk in the first place, putting any type of lighting on the crossing signs may not encourage people to use them. But an electronic sign will likely save someone who does use the crosswalk from certain harm. I will continue to pursue that solution. However, after the incident August 15th, more lighting would definitely improve a driver's visibility of the entire intersection. The one street light on the corner of Adams barely illuminates the intersection, even after the wattage was increased and the light was turned 45 degrees. There is a light pole on Adams Street that was there when I moved to Cambridge Street 30 years ago. It is extremely bright, and on a timer of sorts as it goes on and off all night long. You can know how much I appreciate that. It currently faces the Markham Building parking lot, but it is not owned by Markham. It is also not owned by the Neshoba Club, and based on my context 30 years ago, it is not owned by the town. So it's a light, but not owned by anybody that shines very brightly. Why not turn that light to face Central Ave and adjust the timing, if possible, to see if it casts a broader beam of light on the intersection? If that works, we have a fix at seemingly no cost. What a novel concept. In closing, I want to thank Dan and the DPW for their efforts to date. I'm hopeful we can find more ways to improve this location as well as our entire community to make it safer for everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Pauline. Any other, anybody here for public input? Anybody else? Or online? Okay. Next up, Alicia Percy from our Community Development Program Manager. Hello.
Good evening. How are you guys?
Good, how are you?
Yes. Good, thanks. Good. So, there's two things that I'm here, well, three things that I'm here for you tonight, to bring in front of you tonight. So we have a property that is got a deed restriction. It's on our SHI list, and it is coming up for resale. It is a unit at the Woodland Village condominium, 68 East Main Street, and there's 11 units there, and 3 of them are affordable. This one will be going on the market, but we have a requirement that we do have the right for first right of refusal on it. And that's just in case they're not selling well because the market's depressed. And then sometimes the town will pick them up to not lose them as a low-income property. So, but the market is not depressed. This is going to be a wonderful opportunity for our family. It will be coming on the market. But the first thing they have to do is we have to waive our right for first right of refusal. And I have checked in with our community, our Affordable Housing Committee chair, and the committee, and there's been an agreement that, of course, we want to move this on to a family, because it will be coming on at a very affordable rate. There will be a lottery for it. So, any questions?
Questions?
Don't have any?
Nope, I don't think so.
Okay. So I just need the board to vote either to exercise the purchase or waive the right. Exercise the right or waive the right to purchase that unit.
I'll make a motion to waive the right of first refusal for 68 East Main Street.
Second, Unit 3.
Unit 3.
Seconded.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Chair says aye.
Thank you very much. And if anybody out there is interested in when that's going to be coming on the market or anything, they can call my office and ask, okay? The next thing I have is we have received a CDBG grant for our for our housing rehab program, which is a program that we've done in the state, in the town for over 20 years. And we have rehabbed over 100 homes over that time period, probably closer to 150. And it is for affordable and moderate income families. We often end up rehabbing elderly people's homes that can't afford to put on a new roof or put in a new furnace, things like that, or new windows, and it allows them to stay in their homes. And so we went to the state this year and requested $287,350. And that's because when I do my budget, I didn't round up, so it's a little odd number there because I just did out the numbers, and that's what came up. So anyway, this is to hopefully rehab 7 housing units, and But with that, we were awarded this, but there was a few things that the state has changed about the program, and they requested that we make the changes in our program guidelines. So I sent you the program guidelines, and I highlighted the ones that were changing. And one of them was, so we've always done a 0% interest DPL. Now I can't remember what TPL is. I have it written down upstairs. I'm sorry. Deferred payment loan. And it was always a 15-year loan, but for the first 5 years, because we wanted to try and get nobody who's going to be flipping houses to use this program. So it was to discourage, speculators. We would say that the loan would stay intact because we were improving the house. And after that, it would start going down each month for the next 10 years. And it just automatically reduces. So if the people stay in the house for 15 years, they owe nothing. The state has decided that that's not, that they want it a little bit more aggressive, so it's going to start depreciating from the first month. And so I've made that changes on that, and that is what the state would like to see in this program. So that's the first change. The other change is the amounts we make available. And so we can spend, we used to be able to spend up to $35,000, then it went to $40,000 per unit, and now because of all the increases, it's up to $60,000 a unit, plus the possibility of $10,000 for historic renovations, for a historic property, or delighting a property. So I had to make those changes in the guidelines, but the guidelines are approved by the select board, so I'm bringing them to you. Are there any questions on that?
I don't have any.
There is one more, sorry.
Nope.
There is one more thing that the town has been ahead of the state on. In this grant period, they requested that all deletting be forgiven immediately. And that's because the state has been trying desperately to get let out of properties. And before, it went on the loan and then would depreciate with no payment due. But the town did that for the 2018 grant ahead of everybody, because we were seeing exactly what the state has seen, that people just need the let out of the properties. And so we forgive the lead portion of the actual scraping and deletting. We don't forgive, like if we put new windows in, that's part of deletting, but we don't forgive the cost of the windows or anything like that. But that's in alignment with what the state has changed this year as well. Okay. Just as an FYI.
Thanks.
Seems pretty straightforward.
Yep. I'll take a motion.
I make a motion that the select board approve the FY24 Air Housing Rehabilitation Program guidelines as stated tonight.
Seconded.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Chair says aye. It's approved.
And one more thing, which I don't have a memo on, but we need an environmental certifying officer. And technically, that's usually the CEO of the town, which is Robert, but he can defer it, and before, in history, he's deferred it to other people, but this time we're going to have Robert be the certifying officer, with the help of, say, the DPW or the conservation agent. I usually do all the review of the environmental, but then it goes to the certifying officer to do the final review and certify that the town has approved it. So I'm asking for the board to approve Robert as the certifying officer. And this is for this grant, but we use it sometimes for other things too.
Any questions? Or?
Are we citing Robert or the position, town manager, in the motion?
Oh, I don't know.
I would, through the chair, I would cite my name as town manager. It's specific. Yeah, good question.
Okay, then I make a motion to have Robert Pontbriand, our town manager, as the certifying officer. What's the
Environmental Review Certifying Officer.
environmental review certifying officer?
Seconded.
All those in favor?
Aye.
And chair says aye.
Okay, and I'll give this to Robert, and you can just sign that. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Have a good evening.
Thank you, Alicia.
Alicia.
It's just by you. Okay.
Next up, we're going to have the official site recommendation for the senior center building.
Quick question.
Yes.
Are these on a dimmer? It is really dark in this room today.
I can boost up the light.
Hello, Dr. Petrowski.
Hello.
Ken, how are you? Good.
Thank you for having us. and
Absolutely.
Also, thank you to the other members of the Site Selection and Building Committee that are here in the audience as well.
Well, what am I supposed to do? You can't see, for God's sakes. You know, I'm going to start bringing my own little light.
Yeah, can put a little light right here.
No,
Watch me, I'll have my light.
No, I'll have him check it. The lights.
Sorry.
That's okay. So the purpose of the update today is to let you know kind of what we've been up to. It hasn't been that long since we've been here, but in the past year, we have been working diligently and methodically to get to where we are today. We've evaluated over 50 town-owned parcels. We have conducted site visits to the 5 parcels that we deem to be the most viable going forward. We issued an RFP for soliciting private land to be sold to the town. That was actually the second one we had issued with no respondents. We toured many recently constructed senior centers in Massachusetts. We hired Catlin Architecture for a feasibility study, and that culminated in the program design, conceptual design, including floor plans, elevations, and 3D renderings, which are in your packet. And we conducted preliminary site investigation on the 2 final sites that we considered, as well as met with members of the Ayer Shirley Regional School District on multiple occasions, and then began the public input process via several small senior-based presentations, and as well as the over 20 committee meetings that we had that had members of the public, both in person and online. So we are pleased to announce that at our August 28th meeting, the Senior Center Site Selection and Building Committee voted 7-1 to recommend a portion of the DPW parcel on Bishop Road as the future site of the Ayer Senior Center. We believe that that is the best fit for a new senior center for several reasons. First, utilizing town-owned land saves the taxpayers a considerable sum of money over purchasing a privately owned parcel that would likely be valued at over $1 million. At just a half mile from Park Street, the parcel on Bishop Road is close to downtown. It has good quality, well-draining soil. It's an open lot with a lot of room for construction without a lot of disruption to neighboring parcels or the road. It has, because it is adjacent to additional town-owned property, it would make any future expansion a simpler process as well. And the road leading out there is flat, and there's not a lot of traffic concerns compared to other locations. So we're here today. Actually, did you have anything you wanted to add to that before I ask them to accept the recommendation?
I'm not sure how much you want to hear, but the first thing we do have to do, I think, is thank the DPW and the town manager for having the DPW assist us in the process.
Yes.
So we couldn't just, assume we could use that land without talking to DPW, obviously, because it's within their jurisdiction, more or less. It's been a process that's taken a lot of time. There's been a lot of effort put in by the volunteers on the committee. And my estimation, it's going to be a great fit for the senior center location. You want to go through what we're going to do in the future?
Yeah, so we're here today to ask for the select board to accept the Bishop Road site recommendation and to support our future next steps. And Ken, did you want to go? Wrong mic.
Wrong one.
I think there's someone waiting to get.
Oh, that was good.
I asked for light, he turns them off.
Yeah, Robert, there's somebody waiting to come into the meeting.
Thank you.
So, after many sessions looking at land all over town, we're aware of the fact that we have to do additional due diligence to make sure that the land doesn't have any surprises and whatnot in the future. So, at this point in time, the committee has authorized us to do, but we feel it's comfortable to report to the select board about this. The idea is to subdivide a section of land from it's 76.5 acres of land, this particular lot that is in control of the DPW. There's basically two large DPW lots, one closest to where the buildings are and one remote over towards the Bishop Road, McPherson Road side, which winds around under the power lines and comes out where you guys are familiar with what used to be the brush dump and so forth over there. We need to take away a section of that land to try to develop and continue with the process of understanding the environmental requirements of the site and determine exactly what, if any, there are any other situations that are detrimental to using the site. So using the whole 76 acres as a study would be just ridiculous. So the concept is to create a lot in the corner. You have it in the packet. I don't know if anyone wants to put it on the screen or whatever, but that particular lot then would give us the advantage of hiring professionals to survey and study that corner of the lot. The environmental issues, of course, would be looking at, habitat. We have to do a habitat assessment, which is what people do these days to try to determine if there's any habitat that might be endangered or potentially a priority in the site, which consists of either plant material or animals or mammals or fossils, whatever could be there. And then typically we would do a Course of 21E report and investigate the lot for that. And if we get through a 21E, which is, as you guys know, is not a real in-depth report, we would take the next step to the next, instead of a phase one, we'd go to phase two. We're simply going to start with a phase one at this point in time. If needed, we'll go to a phase two. We're talking about engaging National Grid, led by Dan Van Skelwick, to determine the engineering required to get electricity to the site. There is no electricity on down that road at this point in time. And we're talking about the DPW providing us an estimate, which they have kind of already done, but take it to drawings and something that can be bid out for a water line to come down to the site. So based on that, we'll know exactly what utility costs are valued to bring to the site. We have estimates now, but we want to get closer to the real number. The other thing to keep in mind is that we were lucky enough to get grants for this project from the state. So I believe we still have somewhere in the vicinity of $285,000 left in the grants that have been given to the senior center for the feasibility study and for the further development of the land. So we're not really coming here looking to ask for more money. We're coming here basically to keep progressing on the study of the land and come up with the answers. So when people ask, have we done this, have we done that, yes, we will be able to say we have. So we're approaching it just as though we're a professional accomplishment by any developer coming into town, looking at a piece of land and trying to determine what, if any, negatives would be there and determine if at the end of the day, we have any issues that would come up in the future, and we hope there are none. The feasibility study gave us the ability to determine how many parking spaces, for instance, would be optimal and how much the size of the building and the somewhat location of the building, as you see in the package. That determines somewhat the 3-acre requirement. It could end up being more than 3 acres if what the engineer looks at it might be a slightly larger amount. The other thing that's interesting out there is we will have no town sewer out there, so this will have a septic system on the site. The septic system will most likely need a requirement for expansion in the future under whatever the current codes are for septic systems at this point in time. But there will definitely be no wells unless we will later to do a well for, let's say, lawn irrigation or something. It's going to be definitely town water. We wouldn't put a building out there with the wells, knowing its proximity. We're also most likely going to do a traffic study. The reason for the traffic study sounds like it's way down the road, but we do have to take a look at the intersection of Park Street and Bishop Road. If there's any concept in getting to the site that's tricky, it's going to be that corner. So we feel it's going to be advisable to take a look at that corner for traffic study at this point in time. Ultimately, when it goes to a site in the future to the planning board, they most likely will ask for a traffic study. So we're trying to be proactive, do things we can do now, long before, let's say, a potential town meeting comes up for the whole project, but we'll at least have determined that the land is clean and it's got the right configuration. If and when the lot is broken up, which will be on paper and signed off, it doesn't change anything with the ownership of the lot or how the lot is used. It simply creates the lot. So if the project even doesn't get forward, you simply have another lot that's cut out under the town ownership. There's no change in ownership, no change in the use of the lot, or determine that it went to a specific use. So if someone says, oh, you're creating a lot for the senior center, well, we're creating a lot. Ideally, we would like to use it for senior center, but it may or may not ultimately end up that way. It's only shaped on a piece of paper signed off by the planning board at this point in time. I think that's kind of the quick review.
So, in addition to that due diligence for the site, our next steps include conducting further public input sessions with the broader community to educate them about where we've come thus far and to seek input on the building and the design, to further refine cost estimates and borrowing strategies, and to determine an appropriate timeline for bringing this to likely a special town meeting. So,
I think what you presented is, this building is beautiful, and it's very exciting to see that this is where we're at now, from where it started. Janice?
So you're talking maybe that you would want to, I mean, we're just conversing at this moment, its own town meeting, a special town meeting, specifically for this, because you said special town meeting, we wouldn't necessarily do it in the fall.
so I think we've passed the deadline to add it to the fall town meeting.
Right. So that's what I'm saying. I mean, but would you be wanting it to do it in the fall? Because I would think if it's going to be money, it would have to be the spring town meeting. I'm just talking things out.
I'm not sure we're there yet to determine the best thing.
Yeah.
I think it will depend on sort of how many extra steps are required in some of the site due diligence. And
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Just to speak to that, and excellent work to Katie and Ken and the whole committee on that. So the last, sort of the last two bullets on page 2 is sort of where we are actively working now. So obviously one of the issues is to look at the exact cost estimates and borrowing strategy and financing, and we don't have all of that information today, and nor you wouldn't at this point in the process. So to err on the side, because once you say out a number, that gets etched in everybody's mind, there's a lot of work to do there. To Selectman Livingston's point, I would just add, we do know that the project, a significant piece of it, as any project of this magnitude would be, will be a borrow authorization. So procedurally, the Ayer town meeting will need to authorize a borrow authorization up to a certain amount, requires a 2/3 vote of town meeting. And in talking with the finance manager and other projects, this would be a debt exclusion. So in addition to the borrow authorization, the voters of Ayer will have to pass it by a simple majority at a ballot. And as the board is aware, state law, interestingly, it doesn't matter what order. However, almost 99% of the time you would do your town meeting first and then your ballot. So one of the things that we need to look at, as the committee has mentioned in here, is the appropriate timeline. So one option, as Katie mentioned, this fall, that ship has passed. The normal cycle would be the annual town meeting in April of 2025, with the local election is May 12th of 2025. However, as we're putting everything together, if it's determined the select board could call a special town meeting for the borrow authorization with at least a 14-day notice, we would want to do more. And the select board could also call a special election for that ballot question if we needed to. So at this point in the process, through the chair, I mean, all options are on the table. Our goal is to figure out get all of the information, figure out what are the optimal options, and then to come back. So to Selectman Livingston's question, which is an excellent one, it is a 2-part process, and we need to, that will be driven largely by the rest of the information.
Thank you, Robert. Any other questions, Janice?
No, I mean, I just kind of was just kind of getting a feel, and
Yeah.
also it was great because we made sure that got out and everything. Because this would be a very long process, a good process, and for a good project, so we want to make sure it gets its fighting chance.
Chris?
Yeah, just curious, because I know you were also looking at the parcel that was controlled by the school over on Washington Street. And just curious, the merits of this site were, obvious compared to, because I know you presented in front of the, school committee, and they were supportive but had some issues. So I was just wondering if it was because of those little bit of issues that you kind of went to this site, or was it just this site was really what you wanted?
I think both of the sites had pros and cons, but knowing that this is, and I'm going to speak just for myself for a second, knowing that this is a big project to bring to the town, I was thinking it would be better to have something to use the parcel that didn't have a potential competing interest on it, so that there would be they could vote without that in mind. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, totally understood. Thank you.
Any?
We thought, excuse me, just a second,
Yeah,
Chris.
absolutely.
The other thing that we considered, that one of the advantages to being, there was a thought that if you were near the school, there could be a connectivity between the school and the senior center
Right, yeah.
and whatnot, and using the existing facilities. But the slope of the lot kind of created negativity because that was so steep to get up to those, the tennis courts or pickleball courts if they were up there, whatever the case might be. And all of us thought the traffic might be tricky coming down those hills. So
That's,
there was a number of different things. It was proximity that was important, but by the time we looked at the other aspects of it, it seemed to be a better location.
I mean, I think both sites, like you said, I heard both of them, and they were pretty equal in my mind. I just didn't know if one, that kind of tipped it one way or the other, that, it was maybe lukewarm support, kind of like, we like this, but there's some issues or anything like that.
It was a factor.
Okay.
Any other questions or comments?
So you need a motion to get the ball rolling?
I think that's yes, that'd be great.
Well then, I'll make a motion that the select board accept the Bishop Grove site recommendation and support the next steps in moving the senior center forward.
Seconded.
All those in favor?
Aye.
The chair says aye. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for everything.
Good luck, you got a lot of work ahead of you, but you guys can do it.
Exciting.
Yeah.
All right, next up, we're going to have a presentation of the stormwater utility evaluation from the Stormwater Utility Advisory Work Group. Hello, Matt. Hello, Jonathan.
Hello. Hello. Good
evening.
Thank you.
Yes.
Problem with this drive. Scan the drive now and fix it.
It will work. You just have to go to.
Okay.
If it falls off the wall, it's on you.
Oh, my head.
Just kidding. So,
You share. You go to.
do you want to?
Yeah. Let me see if I can figure this out. So is this?
Maybe we need to open it.
Nope.
Documents. You go to docs. Oops. I think we just have to go to the desktop, Robert.
Yep, so close that.
Yeah.
Minimize.
Just getting into Zoom.
Yep.
View, and then we go exit full screen. Yep.
And on the bottom.
There we go. Then we go to.
If you clicked on the folder,
Oh, folder, there we go. Thank
and
you.
then it should get you to
USB.
USB.
Thank you.
There you go.
Sorry about the technical
I'm
difficulties.
handy. I'm handy once in a while.
Yes.
All right.
And then we would need to just hit the share.
Yeah, under Zoom.
Zoom back.
Yeah, open. Share. Green box, yeah.
Hey.
There we go.
All right.
Hit share down there.
Awesome.
All right.
And we just need to go move the bar. Let's go to slideshow beginning. All right.
Alrighty.
Thank you for everyone's patience. So Jonathan and I are here on behalf of the Stormwater Utility Advisory Work Group.
Matt's doing play-by-play, I'm doing color.
So this work group has been looking at the possibility of a stormwater utility over the past year. I believe the last formal presentation was a year ago. I know Dan has since then provided a lot of updates to the select board, but this is more of a formal presentation of our findings. So our work group, we have 9 members. It includes Selectwoman Livingston, Planning Board Chair Jonathan Krantz, as well as Jin Hong, Beth Sudemeyer, James Carhart, Barbara Tierney, Heather Hampson, David Skopwick, and myself. And we also had support from Ty & Bond, the town's consultant. And I know Emily Serbo is on the call. She is with Ty & Bond, can answer questions at the end. So the work group has a web page. So this link here will take you right to it. You can see this screenshot has a lot of links from past presentations, meeting materials, minutes, and also draft documents that we'll get later into tonight in the presentation. So the work group, so our objective is to consider the adoption of a stormwater utility. So that's also called an enterprise fund. So enterprise fund, that's how we run our water and sewer systems. So this would be a similar setup. So for those who aren't familiar with stormwater, we fund our stormwater through the general fund. And we'll get into some of the challenges with that and why that's not advantageous going into the future. So our goal from today's meeting is really to present the work group's efforts, findings, and recommendations. So over the past year, the work group has done quite a bit. So we started in September of last year. So that schedule on the bottom shows all the various meetings and dates we were trying to get presentations and draft documents completed. So the presentations, more or less, these 4 items here and expanding on that. So over the past year, the work group, we've defined, I guess, the stormwater utilities needs and what levels of funding is needed, what level of funding we feel is appropriate. We've also drafted a rate structure, regulations, and a credit policy, and we've conducted public meetings and also public outreach. So this first item here is really identifying the need for funding, the stormwater utility needs and funding. So really how much money we would need on an annual basis and kind of how to do it in order to meet our needs today and tomorrow.
If I may. So the point we want everyone to understand is that we, like so many towns in the United States, have aging infrastructure that requires care. Compound that with growth and compound that with climate change, and we see that there's a greater urgency to stormwater than there had been in the past. And so the efforts of the work group are to come up with the most responsible and fair way of addressing the overall stormwater challenge.
So you can see some pictures on this slide, and that is a picture of the culvert over James Brook on Grun School Road. You can see it's very old. and definitely in need of replacement. And it's also a very expensive project to take on. It's a $3 million estimated project. So,
And as you can, whoop,
So on the very bottom, it shows that we evaluate 3 different levels of stormwater management. Really, the best level of service versus, an acceptable and proactive level of service. You can see that the costs are quite different for each different version.
and if I may.
Sure.
So you can imagine that the bulk of the work group's discussion has been about these different levels, and we're trying to balance responsible care for our stormwater infrastructure versus the costs imposed on the taxpayers in town. And that's the hard thing. You're trying to find that, you go for the highest level, you get the most money to do the projects the fastest, but it proves it could be way too burdensome to the ordinary taxpayer. And what we found is that we looked at these 3 different models, and you can see version 1, version 2, and version 3 that and believe in the subsequent slides we can go into more detail. But it turns out that when we go to the version that's the least burdensome to the town, it does effectively address our stormwater infrastructure needs, but it spreads out the capital projects over a longer length of time.
And that's shown on this slide. So just as Jonathan said, so the work group decided to recommend version 3, that proactive version, the least expensive version. It does meet our today's needs and our tomorrow's needs. It's a proactive program. You can see on the left, that's our current program. Our funding level is about $240,000 a year. But with that funding level, we're still a very reactive program. We're really chasing already existing, completely failed infrastructure. And it's just not a really good way of going about it, but that's historically how our stormwater program's been run.
Right. We want to fix the stuff before it breaks and creates a problem.
So there's some details on here. You can see the projects today. They're very small projects. We do some very small culvert projects here and there, but this program will allow us to do much larger projects to take on these culvert replacement projects on a fairly regular basis. And also it'd take us from an unlikely possibility of meeting our future permit needs to very likely with this level of funding. So it's really a sustainable way of going about stormwater with this additional funding.
And I just want to add too, for those projects that are capital intensive, like over $3 million for that Groton Harvard Road culvert, obviously that can't just come from a $700,000 annual enterprise fund. There would have to be capital. You need to get to borrow. The debt service was already calculated within the $700,000 per year, so that's included in that. So it's not like here's $700,000 plus we have to accommodate some debt. No, it's all in one thing. It's already included in the numbers, and I want to thank Ty and Bond and also Dan and Matt for doing those calculations.
So this next set of slides, this is the draft rate structure. So before we get into, numbers, these are just 2 key terms that we'll be referencing, impervious area and equivalent residential unit. So those are obviously not terms we use every day, but they're very important here. So impervious area is really just hard surface. It's pavement, concrete, and stormwater flows off of it.
Right. Water cannot percolate down as it would naturally.
So unfortunately, we can't meter stormwater like we can with water and sewer, but impervious area can be measured. It's the most common way of assessing a stormwater fee. The second term is the equivalent residential unit, and to make this simple, it's really a stormwater billing unit.
Yep.
So we can't really, like I said, measure the amount of water coming off a property, but this term, ERU, it's related to impervious area. So that's a simple definition, and the more complicated definition is that 1 ERU is equal to 3,200 square feet of impervious area. And that is basically the typical single-family home, how much impervious area is on that property.
So it'd be like the house and the driveway and maybe the sidewalk to the front door would be the impervious area.
Exactly.
We're talking about, right? Okay.
Exactly.
And through the chair to Janice, so what this does is by creating the ERU, the equivalent residential unit, that avoids the complexity and the incredible expense of having to bring out tape and measure all the property in there. Obviously, that's not reasonable, but we can come up with an average number for 3,200 square feet, which is reasonable. And by having that one unit, it brings absolute clarity. You have a single-family home, it's one ERU. And then, as you'll see, as we go into other areas, then it becomes, instead of doing a complex calculation, just say, well, how many ERUs is this equivalent to? And that's how it is. So this is important. So imagine if it's a 10-unit apartment complex, it's not 10 times the ERU. It's not like 10 units, 10 RU. No, it's not. It's the impervious area that might only be 3 ERUs, even though there's 10 units on there. So I just want to make that distinction before there's a sense of panic. Oh my gosh, what about the multifamilies? That's how this is going to work.
So, and one more slide before we get into numbers and the real rates that we're proposing as a work group. We have a property viewer. So we have a link up here and a QR code. So this is an interactive map. You can search for your property or pan to it, but it gives a lot of good information. You have the property owner ID, but going back to that last slide, there's also the impervious area and the ERUs that have been calculated for each property. And we have some examples just to make this more clear for everyone in the next 2 slides. But this is the big slide that I'd say that most people are probably most interested in. So the work group's recommended rate structure, really what the cost is per billing unit or ERU. So based on all the slides, all the information we've presented, so our proposed annual fee would be $95 per ERU. And that $95 is proportional to that $700,000 that we just went over for the total funding. So if that $700,000 were to go down, that $95 would go down at the same proportional amount.
So for the average citizen then, when they get their water sewer bill quarterly, this will be a third line item. You have water sewer and then the $2375 for the stormwater utility enterprise fund.
And if I could just add on, the $95 was also talked about when we had the public hearing up at Great Hall. So that amount hasn't changed since that public hearing because it works. So I just wanted to just kind of remind everybody that, you know, there's been nothing added. And if approved at town meeting, this would fall under the rate review. So any potential increases would all be in a public meeting and then a public hearing, just like we do with the transfer station and the water and sewer. So again, this would all be very, very transparent and the public would be able to be, you know, so if 2 years from now we need to raise the rates, it's in a public setting so that people can express their concerns or at least watch to find out what's going on. So
the next 2 bullet points here go over single-family residential properties and all other properties. So single-family residential properties, based on what the work group proposed, those properties would have an annual fee of $95. So that one ERU, $95, that amounts to $23.75 quarterly, just to be clear. But all other properties that are not single-family residential, those would actually be charged a fee proportional to the amount of impervious area on the property. So those bills could possibly be higher and even much higher. We'll go over 2 examples. So this first example is 2 Pheasant Circle. So this is right from our interactive map. You can see all this red here. That's a driveway, building footprint. There's some other hardscape on here. There's the property. So that impervious area has been calculated. It's listed right here, 3,190 square feet. 1 ERU because it's a single-family residential property. It doesn't matter how much hard surface is on a single-family residential property based on what the work group is proposing. No matter how large or small your driveway is or house is, you would be charged at $95 per quarter, or $95 annually, which is $23.75 per quarter. And for all other properties or non-single family residential properties, so commercial, industrial, multifamily, those properties would actually be charged a different fee. And that's all based on the property's impervious area. That's where this, all this red here really comes into play in determining the actual fee. So this example here is 11 Willow Road. And you can see this is right from the property viewer. So this is the impervious area, 68,542 square feet. So based on that one ERU being 3,200 square feet, this property has 22 ERUs. And the total annual rate, based on $95 per ERU proposal, that would result in a $2,090 annual fee. So you can really see these very large properties would pay their fair share based on what we're proposing, what the work group's recommending. So this third item is draft regulations and credit policy. So similar to a water and sewer enterprise funds, we would need regulations for stormwater if this were to be accepted.
But you, the board, are the authority. You, the board, would set the rates.
And the rate process, as Janice mentioned, it'd be very similar to water and sewer. It'd be a public process. So we are proposing, as a work group, a credit policy. And it would be available to all properties. It'd be very helpful, especially to the large properties like the example we just showed for Willow Road. But the credit policy, what we're recommending, any property would be eligible to up to 50% off their stormwater fee. They would have to come to the town and show that they have some stormwater controls on the property that help limit the amount of stormwater flowing off their property. And let's have in the draft regulations, so these are on the webpage. I believe it's the first link on there, but we also have a section for billing and collection. And as Jonathan mentioned, this would be added to the water and sewer bill if this were to be approved.
What's up, Janice?
Through the chair over here, up to there. And also, you had like a public forum for some of the businesses, right? So the businesses are already aware of this. So I just,
Yes.
I just want to kind
So-
of, put that out there too. So-
Absolutely. Janice, and I'll use that as a segue. So in terms of, we didn't come here today to spring this on you. So in addition to the fact we've had monthly meetings for a year now, we've had multiple board and committee presentations. You can see there. First, February 23 to this select board. We had, and again with an update in June of 23, evaluation in February 24 of the Stormwater Enterprise Fund, and then, and this has been a lot of fun, we've done presentations to the Planning Board, the Conservation Commission, the Financial Committee, the Board of Health, all of these, of course, public, in the public welcome and videotape, and then formal public outreach presentations. I wish I could remember, we brought on an expert on stormwater policy to speak to us at the library in February of this year. We had the public input forum. You can see the photo of it in the lower right-hand corner. That went really well. And in fact, I wonder if there would be a lot of concern or sticker shock. And in fact, I was surprised it was very little. In fact, some people were saying, "You sure 95 is enough? You sure that's going to work?" And we're like, "Yes, we believe it can." And then just recently, last month, we had a meeting in this room with commercial property owners. And again, that meeting went astonishingly well. The questions really weren't about challenging the rates or the fund, but just about the technicalities. People wanted to know how it works, how they're going to pay, et cetera. But there was no pushback, which was promising.
But if I may, also by starting at, the lower amount of the $95, okay, there's no sticker shock, okay? But also it gives us a chance to grow over the years instead of starting up high, which again, the biggest concern I think that everyone at the public information session in June was, would the 95 do what is needed to be done? And it will.
Yes.
So there's no reason to, go higher, when it gives us a place to grow.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well said.
And there was some other outreach as well. So these weren't presentations, but really just information sent, mailings to residents, flyers at town meeting, posted on social media here and there. We have a frequently asked questions document on the webpage that has a lot of good information. And also all our meetings, our work group meetings, we have the meeting notes and minutes, and also all our outreach plans on the website.
And Heather of the Conservation Commission has been so kind as to say that at her table, the Newton Street Festival on October 5th, there'll be information there available about the Stormwater Utility Fund, and I'll be volunteering at that event, but I'm hoping I can spend also some time at the table too to answer people's questions.
Our last slide here, this is really next steps. We have our draft rates, draft regulations, we've done our public outreach. So our next step obviously is to present this at Fall Town Meeting, which has been our goal for the past year, is to get to this step. So we would present 2 warrant articles, first being the creation of the Stormwater Utility Fund, and the second would be the actual funding mechanism, the stormwater utility fee collections, abatements, and links. So that is next month.
There you go. And that'd be that.
Dan's not here, but he did all the work.
It looks like he's holding the camera right there. Nice job, guys.
Yes, thank you guys. Very good job. Any questions, Chris?
No, I mean, I think this group has done an excellent job putting out the information. I saw my picture there at the public input meeting. You did a great job there explaining everything. So, it's pretty concise. It shows what this is. It's one of those things that, that use a term, you pay the piper. All these, like the culverts, those things are going to fail.
Yes.
You have deferred maintenance, but it doesn't mean that it doesn't exist. So it's just kicking the can down the road. You're going to pay for it at some point. And I think you've done a great job showing that this is, what's going to happen if we just ignore this and say, as you say, being reactive instead of proactive. Never a spot you want to be. So, yeah, great job.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you guys very much.
Thank you.
Good job.
Thank you.
All right, next up, we have the Department of Public Works report from Matt, our town engineer, and Kimberly, our water and sewer superintendent. Hello. Welcome.
Yes, so DPW, we have 5 items on the agenda tonight. So our first item is a recommendation for installation of traffic signage. So this is simply recommendation to install a stop sign. So the DPW and police department were made aware of some near misses at the intersection of Pleasant, Groton, and Washington Court. So that's that kind of weird, really tight intersection there. It is kind of a weird one.
No, I'm trying to place it. Yeah, no, keep going.
There's a map,
I do have a graphic.
page 35 in the packet. It's kind of zoomed in, but.
Yeah, that doesn't help me.
Yeah.
I know, but it doesn't help me. It just, yeah.
So
I'll go drive it.
So our understanding of near misses was a pedestrian near misses. So there wasn't there actually was a crosswalk there that had faded, And we have since, DPW has since painted it, but we kind of realized there's no stop sign, which is very unusual. The other legs of the intersection have stop signs, so kind of, I think it was just a missing stop sign, strangely enough. So the DPW, we recommend it, the police department recommend it, and we're bringing this to the select board because the select board has authority for placement of traffic signs.
I'm all for it.
If the DPW and police say that it's needed, that's good enough for me.
No, I want to argue it.
Please.
I drive that intersection almost every day, and yeah, a stop sign would be helpful, where it's proposed, definitely.
I'll make a motion to authorize the town to install and maintain a traffic sign at the approach to Pleasant Street from Groton Street in accordance with the Town of Ayer traffic regulations and as presented.
Second it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Chair says aye. It's approved.
Second item tonight, we have a change order. This is change order number 2 for the hydrant replacement project. That was a town-wide hydrant replacement project. It's now substantially complete. The project included 18 hydrants that were replaced in various locations throughout the town, and also included some water main work on West Main Street between Mechanic Street and Park Street. So this change order is specifically for the replacement of an additional hydrant on West Main Street that we found was not functioning properly in the work area. And change order also includes delays that were incurred by the contractor. So for all these hydrant replacements, we actually had to turn the water off, close valves, notify customers. In this instance, the valves weren't functional. So we actually had to delay the work for a whole day. So these change orders amounted to, proposed change orders amounted to $14,247.71. So DPW recommends that the select board vote to approve that change order.
Any questions? Okay, we'll take a motion.
I'll make a motion that the select board approve change order number 2 for the hydrant replacement project in the amount of $14,247.71 for signature by the chair.
Seconded.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Chair says aye. It's approved. Motion passes.
Where is he signing? Oh, here.
Yep.
Our third item from DPW is execution of agreements.
Thank you.
For 254 to 260 Ayer Road in Littleton. So if you're not familiar with that property, that's the Gulf gas station right at the town line at the Willow Road at Route 28 intersection. So that property, they're proposing to redevelop the property. They're proposing another gas station with a pizza and coffee shop, but one of the challenges is they don't have town sewer to connect to. That was actually voted at the past town meeting. So the town did vote to accept that sewer connection. It hasn't been constructed yet. We've been working through some agreements with the property owner and also the town of Littleton. They actually had to go through the same process through their DPW board to approve that sewer. This project is really beneficial to the town because it would actually allow, I believe it's 5 or 6 properties that connect the town sewer. So it was a pretty easy thing for DPW to go along with. So the 2 agreements we're looking for signature tonight. One agreement is between the town of Ayer and the property owner of 254 to 260, so they would actually be constructing this pipe, paying for it. And the other agreement is an intermunicipal agreement between town of Ayer and town of Littleton. So DPW recommends that the select board vote to execute those agreements.
Mr. Chair, just to add, in addition to the DPW's work on this, both agreements have been reviewed by town council to legal form.
Okay. Any questions?
They're gonna have to rip up all the work that they did.
So that's been kind of the elephant in the room with this. So I think we met back in January of this year when this was initially brought to the town's attention. So we've stressed to the developer, this project's very close to done. You have to coordinate with MassDOT. This is their project. You have to get permits through them and the town, but MassDOT is a party in this. So personally, I've been a little frustrated with the progress. It seems like they're slowly inching toward construction, but yes, that is something they're actually working with MassDOT. They're hoping to possibly delay the paving, but I'm not sure if that will actually happen.
Yeah.
So it
Isn't
is.
there like a 5-year no disturb after? So, I mean, are we on the clock or?
Exactly.
Yeah.
There's a 5-year moratorium.
Yeah.
MassDOT might have even a more strict moratorium. But even if this weren't to happen immediately, this agreement in place, it could happen 5 years down the road. So this is a good thing.
Okay. All right, I will make a motion to vote to execute the municipal sewer agreement with the owner of 254 to 260 Ayer Road in Littleton for signature by the board.
Seconded?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Chair says aye. Motion passes.
Okay, and I'll make a motion that the select board execute the intermunicipal agreement between Town of Ayer and Town of Littleton for the provision of municipal sewer related to the sewer connection for 254 through 260 Ayer Road in Littleton for signature by the board.
Seconded.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Chair says aye. Motion passes.
Okay, so my next topic is the execution of a contract between the Town of Ayer and Calgon Carbon. So at the last town meeting, we appropriated some funds in order to award the bid of getting new GAC for the Spectral Pond filtration plant, which, as we know, GAC is the media that filters out the PFAS, and we want to keep that going forward. So with your permission, we'd like to sign the contract between the Town of Ayer and Calgon Carbon.
Any questions?
I have none. Calgon, ooh, take me away.
All right, I'll make a motion to vote to execute the contract for the Spectacle Pond Water Treatment Plant GAC Media Replacement Project in the amount of $164,400 for signature by the chair.
And there are 3 copies of the same thing.
Second it. All those in favor?
Aye.
And the chair says aye. Yeah.
All right, and lastly is a water supply update.
This one's for signature by the chair? Okay. Sorry, too many shuffling
I
around.
know. Didn't want to miss
Got
one.
confused for a second there. Okay.
Yeah, take
We
your
did the
time.
motion for yours, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah. So lastly is the water supply update. So steady is the word I want to use. It's the best word to use these days. The average, since the last update, the average use has been 1.45 million gallons a day, which is not bad at all. The highest day was on September 5th at 1.8, and that's not too bad. So the wells are getting very few breaks, but they are getting breaks. Like steady is the word I want to emphasize with how we've been doing since the last update. Washington Tank, which is a measure of demand and how resilient we are. We like to start out in the 50s every morning, and there were a few days where we were starting out in the upper 40s. So we're not quite as resilient as we were during our last report, but we're still doing okay. The large customers are cooperating, and for that we are still eternally grateful. And we are also getting better compliance from the residents. There haven't been any new letters issued out to residents. I have started granting requests for variances because of new landscape installations. So this, as you know, this is like the right time of year to be installing
landscape and reseeding lawns and stuff. So if people want that variance request, just the paperwork is, they can call the office to get, or email me, or it's on the website, the form is there. Lastly, I want to note that we are going to be, because we are doing well enough with water, we're going to start doing our fall flushing program starting on the 23rd. It's a town-wide flushing program. But it will be day to day, depending on the availability of water. So in the past, before we had this PFAS issue, they would just do the whole town in 6 weeks and it wouldn't be an issue. But now it's a day to day, depending on the water availability. It is mandatory maintenance to clean the loose sediment in the lines, and we do it as efficiently as possible. I know it looks wasteful, but it's really important to do. It also makes sure that hydrants and valves are still working properly as they should. That's, if anybody has any questions.
No.
Okay, thank you very much.
Both of you. Thank you so much. Have a good night.
Did we have the amendment on the has waste?
That's going to come up under me. Yep.
Yeah, I wrote it in the wrong section.
Yes. I put
Did
it
you
as
do?
number- I started number 6 and I said that?
Yeah, I'm like, I know, I was just looking at that too.
Our next item on the agenda is our town manager's report. Mr. Pombriand.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, good evening. You have in the packet the town warrants that were reviewed and approved since the board last met on September the 4th. In terms of the administrative update, just briefly, we're getting into full budget preparation mode and town meeting preparation mode as we normally do this time of year. I'll talk about the development of the town meeting warrant in just a moment, and we're beginning the budget process. We'll be giving a presentation to the FinCom on the ClearGov budget platform for the budget. We'll also be automating the capital process this year using ClearGov. So all departments will be able to submit their capital electronically. The committee will be able to review, and what's nice about it, and we'll show this at a future date, there's all kinds of interactive graphics and reports that the individual user, whether a resident or a department or so forth, can tailor to their needs. So this is an exciting year, I think, for ClearGov. It'll be a year work in progress as we unveil that. Unless there are any administrative questions from the board, in the interest of time, I'll just get into the action items that I have for tonight. So there are no appointments this evening for the board's consideration. So the next item is the creation of a working group for the initial planning for 71 Sandy Pond Road. And as the board is aware, through the support of town meeting last spring, the town acquired 71 Sandy Pond Road, and as we all know, that the intent for that parcel is for it to be used for parks, recreation, open space is sort of the universe of what we're looking at for that. So what I'm proposing is the creation of a working group that would simply be charged, as I put in the packet, with developing the initial planning and public outreach and participation for the property. And I really want to stress the public outreach and participation process, because I think the DPW director said it best. This is sort of a blank canvas. There's a lot of exciting ideas out there from the Parks Commission, from the public, and we want to really go through all of those ideas and see what would be the best use for that property. Additionally, we thank the Select Board for your support using ARPA funds of up to $25,000 for a consultant to work on the initial design with the working group and the public, but also to hold a series of public outreach forums or charrettes on that. So we appreciate those tools for success. The working group, the goal will be charged with providing a formal recommendation or recommendations to the select board to consist of a final project option or options, a proposed project budget with recommended funding options, and a recommendation on next steps for the project. Additionally, the working group shall provide the appropriate level of public outreach and public engagement with the initial planning process. The working group, as all of our working groups, such as the Stormwater Group, will adhere to the Massachusetts Open Meeting Law, with all of the meetings being publicly posted and open to the public. Additionally, the working group will adhere to the Massachusetts Public Records Law by recording and publicly posting working group meeting minutes and all materials used by the working group on a dedicated web page on the town's website. And the proposed composition of the working group is an 11-member group. I would sort of convene it. The DPW director, the Parks director, 2 Parks commissioners to be selected by the Parks Commission, a member of the Community Preservation Committee, as CPC did put some key funding, as we all know, last spring for this acquisition. When I met with the CPC, they also indicated further support for this project moving forward. The town planner, a planning board member, and that should say as selected by the planning board, a typo on Parks Commission, the conservation agent, and 2 resident representatives appointed by the select board. So it would be an 11-member working group just to work on this, to make recommendations to the board, of which 7 of the 11 would be Ayer residents. The 2 resident representatives, and we'll advertise this if the board authorizes this, should submit a letter or email of interest to the select board office by September 27th, and candidates will be interviewed and approved by the select board at the October 1st meeting, as I'd like to get this going. So that's sort of what we're presenting for the next steps. I open it to any questions, suggestions from the select board, and would be looking for your support to move this forward. And as we move forward, we intend to come both to the select board and to the Parks Commission with periodic updates.
Any questions?
Sounds good to me.
Questions?
Excited to see it happening.
Yeah.
I'll make a motion to vote to authorize the working group for 71 Sandy Pond Road as presented.
Seconded?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Chair says aye.
Great, thank you. So the next item is, it's hard to believe it's coming up so quick, is the 2024 special fall town meeting to be held on Monday, October 28th at 7 in the high school auditorium. Just to reiterate, the deadline for all warrant articles is Friday, September 27th at noon. That's also the deadline for citizens' petitions to the town clerk at the same time. The board will be reviewing and approving the warrant on October 1st, and the warrant will be in your packet in advance of that. Upon approval by the select board, we'll publicly post the warrant by October 4th on the town's website in various locations throughout town. It'll be sent for printing and mailing at that time to arrive in Ayer households in advance of town meeting, which is usually about a week after, so it'll be around October 11th timeframe. The warrant is currently under development, but I did put in your packet a summary of the potential warrant articles. It looks like there will be 10 articles at this time, and it'll continue to keep the board updated as we move forward. I gave a brief synopsis. One is the adoption of the prudent investment rule, which there'll be a brief presentation at town meeting. This is from the finance manager. It's recommended as a best practice, the adoption of this statute would allow for broader investment options for the town's various trust funds, and she will provide a detailed explanatory note for the warrant, as well as a memo for October 1st to make a presentation on that. A second article, which we've had from time to time, to rescind unissued borrowing balances. Again, this would be from the finance manager. Previous projects that are complete, that had borrow authorization, there's usually a small amount remaining. Would need asking town meeting to rescind those and to clean up that. The supplemental appropriation for the Assistant Parks Director position, contingent upon the certification of free cash. On October 1st, I'll have a brief presentation with this for the warrant article, but this is something that's been in development for some time for the assistant position, looking for authorization by town meeting for the funding so the position could start sooner than July 1st. And of course, the position would be built into the FY26 budget moving forward. As talked about tonight, there'd be two articles for the stormwater utility. The first article creates the enterprise fund, requires a vote by town meeting. And the second article would be authorizes the fee collections, abatements, and liens. So it's a sort of a two-article process. Again, presentations on these at town meeting. Then the board heard at your last meeting, in the first meeting in September, various zoning bylaw amendments being proposed by the town planner and the planning board. The adoption of the MBTA multifamily overlay district, which the board received a presentation on at your last meeting, and the planning board is currently conducting its public hearing, which opened on September 10th with respect to that. A zoning bylaw amendment for the inclusionary housing bylaw. A zoning bylaw amendment to update the town's definitions, specifically the definition of affordable housing trust would need to be added there. Zoning amendment to update the zoning map, assuming that town meeting passes the MBTA overlay district, the map will need to reflect those two districts. And then lastly, there is a street acceptance, which at the last meeting, the board started that process by voting the intent to accept Shaker Pond Road as a public way. It's currently at the planning board going through that process. We'll come back to the select board for inclusion on the warrant. And as this board knows, right up to town meeting, if the developer does not complete all of the punch list items required by the DPW director, the director will often recommend that town meeting withdraw the article, but everything looks to be on schedule. So that's sort of what the warrant is shaping up to look like at 10 articles for the town meeting. We'll continue to keep the board updated as we move forward.
Questions?
And then the last piece, just to put, and we talked about this previously, and sending this to the Finance Committee for their meeting on Thursday and their input, is just the proposed FY26 town budget calendar. I think it's beginning to shape up pretty good. We need to just populate some of the different boards and committees, which I'll be reaching out to as to when their meetings are going to be on there. But I think that's the last real piece there, unless there's any questions from the board on that.
I can tell you the public hearing for the transfer station rates would be in November.
Right, thank you.
So.
Yep. And unless there's any questions from the board
Nope,
sorry,
number
I did,
6.
as amended, I'm sorry, thank you. As requested on the amendment, yes. So number 6, the household hazardous waste collection program, which the town of Ayer was a founding member of in 2010. As the board's aware, is two days a month up on Devon's. Residents can bring, for a nominal fee, household hazardous waste products for safe disposal. And it's been a very successful program. And what I'm recommending is approval of amendment number 6 to the agreement, which would add the town of Ashburnham which would be the newest member. By having more members, there is the capacity for it, and more members will lower the town's annual fee to belong to it. So it's a positive in that sense. But we would need the board to authorize Amendment 6 to add the town of Ashburnham for signature by the chair.
Any questions? Pretty straightforward. All right. Take a motion.
I will make a motion to accept Amendment 6 to add Ashburnham to the hazardous waste, exactly?
Collection program.
Collection program.
Seconded.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Chair says aye.
All right. Okay, and that completes my report. Mr. Chair, members of the board, thank you for your time.
All right. Next up is new business select board member questions. Janice.
So, I spoke with Senator Eldridge today. So I had contacted him last week because after the Devon's Jurisdictional Framework Committee meeting, the Assistant Town Administrator Shirley happened to say that the following day we were going to hear an announcement about money, and that he was going to get money. And I said, well, what money? What are you talking about? Where's my money? So I contacted Senator Eldridge, so we were able to touch base today. So what it is that the state, I'm assuming the governor's office, is talking about some mitigation money. That's pretty much what it is. There's a conversation about creating some type of mitigation fund. Nothing has been completed yet. So, but I wanted to, he's telling me he's getting money, and I'm like, well, why am I getting money? So Senator Eldridge is like, nobody's getting any money right now. I'm like, okay, I just want to make sure I wasn't getting cheated. Okay. So he then informed me that the governor's office is talking about, again, all of this is just conversations that are going on, okay? That they're talking about, it's kind of a dumb moment, creating a Neshoba Valley task force to study the impacts of the closure. Duh. And he called her to ensure that the stakeholders are involved, which I agreed, because that's been part of the problem all along. They're talking and nobody's talking to the ground troops. And everybody knows you always should talk to the ground troops. So again, this is something that's being discussed. He got wind of it and he called and said, make sure we're included. Okay, so that's where that lays. Regarding any potential proposals coming forward to bringing the hospital back, he said that there have been a lot of conversations with a lot of different entities, private, public, but nobody has submitted a proposal. So again, everybody's talking. I think one of the problems is that the property, being owned by somebody else and all that, but no specific proposals have come forward. But the good news is at least there's some talk going on, there's some conversations going on. So again, this is really just to kind of get everyone up to date as far as, people are talking, which is, great. So for those who didn't watch it, I highly recommend it. You go find it if you can. As we know, Senator Bernie Sanders had subpoenaed Stewart Health. He declined. I think it was because that due to the bankruptcy, he couldn't be there. You could have, let's be honest, you could have avoided any real bankruptcy-related court conversations, but talked about some of the other stuff. But okay. But we had, there was about 4 witnesses, I think, that came forward. One was our own nurse, Audra Sprague, that we all met from Neshoba Valley. There was another woman, I can't remember her name, that was from St. Elizabeth's. All of them were wonderful. And what was brought up is how our Massachusetts Department of Public Health lacked teeth, which, as some of you know, I said at the public hearing. So I guess prior to everything going down, a bill was passed by the Senate, our Senate, to empower the DPH regarding community hospitals and removing private equity from these hospitals. It is currently in conference being negotiated between the House and the Senate. So I guess the House was kind of coming up with their own bill, so now they're all trying to figure out what's the best. I said, well, as long as there's teeth in it, I think we all agree. So that's where that's where that lays. Now, that being said, if tomorrow everyone agreed, they could just show up and vote. They don't have to have it on a specific period, so they could, it's kind of an informal, so they could vote. So hopefully something's going to come out of that. So of course, based on that, and this is, we're like a big duh moment, I mentioned how it was even discussed at the Senate hearing that the DPH being lacking the teeth. So I believe it was the woman from St. Elizabeth's. And she happened to say how, which I don't quote me on who said it. Whoever I know it was a woman, whoever the woman was talking about how at a hospital, a certain section was closed down of a hospital, okay? Example, we'll say ICU, okay? And so Department of Public Health was notified, hey, this part of the hospital is closed down. They've closed this department. And Department of Public Health, well, we know what they should have done. What they did was they picked up the phone, they called Stewart Health. Stewart Health says, no, what are you talking about? It's not closed. I'm going to give a little benefit of the doubt to whoever that person was on the other end of the phone, because they could have been in Texas and hadn't gotten the memo yet, okay? And that was the end of the conversation. Department of Health, Public Health then called back the person who had called originally to say, no, they say it's open. And of course they're like, that's funny, because I'm literally standing in front of a locked door. But okay, so I asked that it be placed in writing that the Department of Public Health needs to physically show up and look at something instead of just calling and taking the answer as is. Right? To me, that's your common sense answer. The problem is that you can have field personnel and you can have non-field personnel. So there's the person who takes the call, and then there's the person who actually shows up, And my husband's an engineer. He has a lot of engineers, but you cannot send those engineers out into the field because they're just going to be lost little puppies. They don't know what to do. Okay, and then there's those that don't sit them at a desk because they need to be out in the field. And what needs to happen is that obviously we need some field personnel or more field personnel, or somebody to just say, you know what, that's on my way home. I think I will get up and get into my vehicle and drive by and at least eyesight it myself. So he agreed, and I said, I don't know if that's in there, but maybe if you're editing something, you could add that, because I'm sad to say that needs to be said. But that's the problem sometimes when we're creating some of these rules or laws and everything, we forget those little pieces. And so everybody says like, well, it didn't say I had to get up. And it's like, well, let me show you why you need to get up. So that's the update. It's nothing really of substance, really, unfortunately. All I can say is that there are things being looked at, there's conversations still happening, but we're still in this limbo.
But there's not silence. We don't want silence.
Yes, exactly. We're still discussing it. People
still talk.
Right, exactly. So, so that's why I wanted to at least bring this forward, to at least let people know that conversations are happening. There's a lot of balls up in the air, and we're just waiting for someone to do something. So,
Great. Thank you.
Ronald Reagan, trust but verify, right?
Here you go. Yes.
Oh, yes, Pauline?
I just have a question. Thank you, Janice, for the update. I really appreciate it. Earlier today, Channel 7 was reporting that UMass is in negotiations to reopen the emergency department at Neshoba Valley. I have no other information than that. But I'm wondering if you all would contact Representative Scarsdale, because she posted something 2 weeks ago that she is directly involved in the negotiations at the request of the governor with entities who are interested in both Kearney and Neshoba Valley. I have contacted her, she has not responded, but maybe y'all could reach out to her. I know she doesn't represent Ayer, but she is uniquely involved in this. She is a member of the health committee, or whatever the governor's committee is, and maybe we can get more accurate information. But Channel 7 is reporting, as of this morning anyway, that UMass is directly involved in negotiations with the state to reopen the emergency department at Neshoba, which would be a godsend. Thank you.
So just to kind of bounce off, so, I mean, Jamie did mention Senator Scarsdale and everything, but again, they're in negotiations means there's conversations going on and not necessarily anything concrete. I talked to Senator Eldridge 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock this afternoon, no, 1 or 1 o'clock this afternoon, I think it was. Did I talk to him before lunch? So it could be that this is one of those conversations too, but I'll reach out to even Senator Eldridge to talk to Senator Scarsdale, because I know that they've been involved in this. But I mean, I'm hoping that what she just said comes to fruition.
All right, great.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that, Janice.
Thank you.
Thank you, Pauline.
Have a good night.
You too. Okay. Next on our agenda is approval of meeting minutes for August 6th, 20th, and September 4th.
The only thing that I saw was the August 20th meeting minutes on page 3. Looks like some kind of funny computer thing where it says Jeff Tillotson stated that he has 100 Henkin stated.
Oh, yeah.
So
I saw that too, and I forgot to mention it.
I put it on my little Post-it and stuck it to my laptop.
What is 100 Henkin?
So, Mr. Chair,
Is that like another word for like 100% or something, or?
not to belabor the point, Mr. Chair, but in full disclosure, as I was doing these minutes, I realized that my wireless keyboard batteries were on their way out. And
Oh, it's the old battery.
yeah, I got, because 100 Henkin, so Selectman Tavares said should be stricken, which we'll take out.
Yeah, no, I saw that. I said, is that some political term I don't quite know or something? But I figured it had to be a computer little hiccup.
Yep.
Okay, that's all I saw.
I saw that and I forgot to like bring that forward. Like, what is Henkin? So,
Yeah, I use technology and then good old-fashioned Post-its. Stick Post-its on my
Notice
laptop.
Okay. So we'll do them individually. I'll make a motion that the August 6, 2024 meeting minutes be approved as submitted.
Seconded?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Chair says aye.
I'll make a motion that the select board approve the August 20th, 2024 meeting minutes as amended.
Seconded?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Chair says aye.
And I'll make a motion that the it's really cold in here. September 4th, 2024 meeting minutes be approved as submitted.
Seconded.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Chair says aye.
Right.
They're all approved.
There's the 6th, the 20.
And unless there's anything else?
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Chair says aye, and we are adjourned.
Thank
Thank
you.
you very much.